The rock closes in around you. Your chest brushes cold stone, your breath echoes in the pitch-black silence. This is no tourist cave. It's a place where no sunlight has dared enter for hundreds of thousands of years. Your fingers find something in the dirt, smooth, solid, a bone, then another and another. But these are not the bones of apes, nor of any animal you know. They are human, and not human. The skull is too small. The hands are wrong. The story they tell is one that should be impossible, because this creature was never supposed to exist at all. And yet, it did. Hidden beneath South Africa, in a place called the Rising Star Cave, scientists have uncovered a ghost from our evolutionary past. A being that could climb like a monkey, walk like a man, and perhaps think like us. Its discovery has shattered the timeline of human history, forcing us to ask the most uncomfortable question of all. How many others walked beside us in the shadows? In 2013, beneath the dry, thorn-studded hills outside Johannesburg, South Africa, two recreational cavers, Rick Hunter and Stephen Tucker, descended into the Rising Star Cave system, an ancient limestone labyrinth hidden under the land locals call Maropeng, the cradle of humankind. Unaware they were about to stumble upon one of the most baffling discoveries in human history. Their route was no easy walk, but a journey through twisting stone corridors, vertical drops, and jagged chambers that narrowed until, at one point, they were forced into the infamous Superman's Crawl, a suffocating chute just 20 centimeters wide, where the only way forward was to slide on your stomach with one arm stretched ahead like a diver, ribs scraping rock at every breath, until finally they emerged into a pitch-black chamber where no sunlight had touched the floor in hundreds of thousands of years, a place so still and silent it felt as though time had stopped. And there, in the pale beam of their headlamps, lay bones scattered across the dirt. Not the fossilized remains of antelope or baboon as one might expect in such caves, but long, delicate fingers, curved ribs, fragments of skulls and leg bones that were unmistakably human-like, yet not quite human. Their proportions strange, their form unfamiliar, each one seeming to whisper from a chapter of evolution no one had read before. The men knew at once they had found something beyond their own expertise, so word reached paleoanthropologist Lee Berger at the University of the Witwatersrand, who, understanding the rarity of such a site, assembled an elite team. 6 women, all small-framed scientists nicknamed underground astronauts, chosen not for their fame, but for their ability to wriggle through the same bone-tight passages. And these explorers descended into the darkness, armed with nothing but lights, notebooks, and the meticulous patience of those who know a single misplaced toe could destroy evidence older than cities. Over days and weeks, they mapped, photographed, and lifted over 1,500 bone fragments from the Earth, enough to account for at least 15 individuals of a species no scientist had ever seen before, one with the stature of a small adult human, but the brain size of a chimpanzee, hands shaped for both climbing and precision work, legs for long-distance walking, and feet built for balance on the ground as well as grasping in the trees, a creature they named Homo Naledi, Naledi meaning star in the Sotho language, after the cave where it was found. And yet this star was no rising beacon in humanity's straight-line story, but a ghost from a tangled forest of evolution, a being that seemed stitched together from different eras of our ancestry, part ancient, part strangely modern, and above all, entirely unexpected. What unsettled researchers most was not just its physical paradox, the mix of primitive ribcage and pelvis with surprisingly human-like wrists and ankles, but where the bones were found, deep in a chamber so remote, there was no sign of predator activity, flooding, or accidental entrapment. no remains of other animals at all, just Homo Naledi, suggesting that these individuals were deliberately placed there by their own kind. A behavior we once believed exclusive to larger-brained humans like Neanderthals or ourselves, forcing science to confront the possibility that this small-brained species understood death, perhaps even practiced ritual. An idea so at odds with the neat, linear narrative of human evolution that it felt almost heretical, as if the cave itself had reached out through deep time to remind us that we have never truly walked alone. The bones of Homo Naledi did not merely tell a story of age, they told a story of design, a body shaped by an evolutionary logic we had not yet understood, a creature assembled like a paradox, as if nature had borrowed traits from different eras and spliced them together into one improbable form. Starting from the ground up, their feet were unmistakably those of a biped, with a strong longitudinal arch and a lined big toe, built to absorb impact and propel them forward efficiently across long distances. Yet the toes retained a slight curve, an echo of tree-dwelling ancestors, hinting at an ability to grip branches or navigate uneven rock with a stability modern humans could not match. Moving upward, their legs were proportionally long for their small stature, with femurs angled inward like ours, knees capable of locking straight for endurance walking, and hip joints that balanced the demands of both upright travel and vertical climbing. The pelvis, however, broke from the modern mold, wide, flared and primitive, reminiscent of Australopithecus, suggesting a larger gut and a torso adapted for digesting fibrous, unprocessed plant material alongside whatever animal protein they could find. Their ribcage confirmed the pattern, conical and expanded at the base, more ape-like than human, housing that large digestive tract, but tapering upward into a structure that still allowed for the lung capacity needed for sustained exertion. Their arms were the real giveaway of their climbing heritage. Long, powerful, with humeri and radii proportioned for vertical reach, shoulders set high and wide for strength in pulling, and curved fingers nearly twice as long as ours, perfect for hooking around branches or rock edges, but paired with thumbs that were surprisingly human-like, broad, muscular, and capable of precise, controlled movements, ideal for gripping and manipulating tools. Even though no tools have yet been found in direct association with them, the wrists were robust and human in their articulation, designed for forceful but accurate hand movements, while the palms showed signs of both strength and dexterity, an evolutionary mashup that made their hands both the implements of a climber and the tools of a craftsman. Their necks and spines told the rest of the story. Vertebrae curved into the same S shape that keeps us balanced when walking upright, but with slightly thicker processes for anchoring the muscles that stabilize the head and shoulders during climbing. Then came the skulls, the most debated fossils of all, with brain cases shockingly small, between 465 and 610 cubic centimeters. Less than a third the volume of modern humans and even smaller than some chimpanzees, yet shaped in a way that betrayed something unexpected. The frontal lobes, key to planning, decision-making and social behaviors, were more developed than their size should have allowed, and the parietal regions, important for spatial reasoning and tool-related thought, were proportionally large, forcing scientists to confront the possibility that intelligence was not simply a matter of brain volume, but also of neurological wiring. The face was a blend of past and present. A pronounced brow ridge, a sloping forehead, no chin, but with small, modern-like teeth and simple roots, suggesting a diet not dominated by heavy chewing of raw, abrasive foods. Their jaws were sturdy yet compact, halfway between early Homo and Australopithecines. Taken together, the skeletons painted the picture of a species standing about 1.4 4 to 1.5 meters tall, weighing only 40 to 50 kilograms, lightly built but densely muscled, with males and females showing very little size difference. A rarity in the hominin record that hinted at a social structure possibly more cooperative and less aggressively hierarchical than in species where large males dominated. But beyond anatomy lay performance, and biomechanical modeling revealed a startling truth. Homo Naledi had raw power that rivaled or exceeded elite modern athletes in certain measures. Their grip strength alone is estimated at 70 to 90 kilograms of force per hand, easily double that of the average modern human and within striking distance of chimpanzees, making them capable of clinging to vertical rock or hauling themselves up with astonishing ease. Their pulling force, calculated from shoulder structure and muscle attachment sites, likely reached 400 to 500 newtons, meaning they could perform multiple bodyweight pull-ups while carrying extra load. A skill essential for climbing in steep, broken terrain. Endurance was another of their weapons. With leg and hip anatomy suited for sustained walking, they likely covered 15 to 25 kilometers a day with little strain, a range matching or surpassing that of modern hunter-gatherers like the Hadza or San, far outpacing the 3 to 5 kilometers most modern sedentary humans manage. Oxygen uptake estimates, derived from limb proportions and chest capacity, put their VO2 max, the measure of aerobic endurance, around 50 to 55 milliliters per kilogram per minute, higher than most modern people and competitive with trained athletes, meaning they could keep going for hours, even on limited calories. And that was the other secret. Their metabolism was thrifty, with a basal metabolic rate between 1,100 and 1,300 calories a day, and a total daily energy expenditure of 1,800 to 2,300 calories, equivalent to a moderately active human, but achieved with smaller reserves and without the modern diet, enabling them to survive in times of scarcity by tapping into fibrous plants, tubers, seeds, and possibly insects, all supported by the large gut hinted at in their ribcage. They would not have been sprinters, and they lacked the specialized hunting toolkit of later hominins. But their combination of strength, climbing skill, endurance, and energy efficiency made them formidable survivors in mixed landscapes of woodland, rocky outcrops, and open savanna. Still, for all their adaptability, what puzzled researchers most was how such a small-brained creature could have navigated to the depths of the Naledi chamber. A space so far from the cave mouth that reaching it requires not only technical climbing but also a deliberate choice to go there. Without evidence of accidental trapping, predation, or natural disaster, the prevailing theory emerged that they carried their dead into this lightless chamber deliberately, returning again and again over generations, perhaps guided by memory, tradition, or even a sense of ritual. Behavior once thought to be the exclusive domain of larger-brained Homo sapiens or Neanderthals, and in that possibility lay the deepest mystery of all, that intelligence may not always look like ours, and that in the small, wiry frame of Homo Naledi lived a mind capable of acts we still struggle to fully explain. For years after the discovery, even the most cautious scientists assumed Homo Naledi must be ancient, a relic from the deep past, perhaps 2 million years old, when small-brained hominins still walked Africa. The logic seemed inescapable, because how else could a species with such primitive anatomy survive in a world that had already given rise to big-brained humans? But in 2017, dating techniques on the teeth and cave sediments returned results that sent shockwaves through anthropology. The remains were astonishingly young, just 236,000 to 335,000 years old, meaning they had lived not in some distant pre-human epoch, but well within the age of modern humans. In evolutionary terms, they were practically our neighbors, sharing the African landscape not just with early Homo sapiens, but with other contemporaries like Homo heidelbergensis, and existing in a time when Neanderthals and Denisovans thrived elsewhere in Eurasia. This revelation cracked the once simple ladder of human evolution into a tangled, living forest of branches, each species existing alongside the others, not in tidy succession, but in a chaotic overlap. And in this forest, Homo Naledi was the strangest branch of all, combining a body that looked millions of years old with a survival timeline that brushed against our own. Their presence during this period also carried a haunting implication. They could have seen our ancestors, smelled their fires, heard their voices in the night, maybe even interacted with them, peacefully, competitively, or in ways we can only guess at. The possibilities didn't end there, because Africa is vast, riddled with unexplored caves and valleys, and if Homo naledi survived this late with such archaic traits, then what else might still be hidden in the rock? How many other ghost species walked beside us unnoticed? We already know from genetics that modern humans carry fragments of Neanderthal and Denisovan DNA, proof of interbreeding between species. But there is a growing suspicion that we also carry traces of other, as yet unidentified, hominins. Ghost lineages, whose bones have never been found, their DNA woven invisibly into ours. If Homo naledi left descendants through interbreeding, their genetic signature could be among those phantom fragments. But so far, no usable DNA has been recovered from the rising star fossils. The cave's environment is too warm and humid for long-term preservation, meaning the answer may be lost unless other sites are discovered. Still, even without genetic proof, their story forces us to rethink what it means to be human, because these small-brained beings didn't just survive alongside us. They may have possessed behaviors we once thought uniquely ours, deliberately placing their dead in a lightless chamber, navigating complex cave systems repeatedly, possibly even using fire. And if such acts were within the grasp of a brain no larger than a chimpanzee's, then intelligence is clearly not only about brain size, but about wiring, adaptation, and the shared memory of a community. It challenges the long-held belief that symbolic thought, the ability to understand concepts like death, identity, or place, evolved only in large-brained hominins, suggesting instead that it may run deeper, older, and more widespread across our family tree. This reframing of our past also reopens eerie possibilities about ancient human psychology. Could the roots of our fascination with almost human figures, the source of the uncanny valley effect, trace back to encounters between our ancestors and beings like Homo naledi, similar enough to recognize yet different enough to unsettle? We may never know the exact nature of those interactions, but the Naledi chamber tells us at least this much. These were not accidental burials nor random scatterings of bones. The remains came from individuals of different ages, placed there over time, with no predator or natural force to account for their presence. An act requiring planning, cooperation, and a shared understanding of purpose, even if that purpose was nothing more than removing the dead from the living spaces. In the grand story of humanity, this means we were never alone, not in the way we once imagined. For tens of thousands of years, Africa was home to multiple human species, each navigating its own survival, some competing, some coexisting, their paths occasionally crossing in ways that left traces in stone, in soil, and perhaps even in our blood. And so the rising star discovery is more than just an addition to the fossil record. It is a mirror held up to our evolutionary arrogance, a reminder that we are not the pinnacle of some inevitable climb, but one branch among many, our story not a straight road, but a twisting network of trails, some ending abruptly, others merging, still others lost in the shadows. And in those shadows, Homo naledi remains a ghost, a creature that should not have existed in its time, yet did. and in doing so rewrote the rules of what it means to be human, forcing us to accept that the past is far stranger, richer, and more crowded than we ever dared imagine. In the end, Homo Naledi is more than just a fossil in a cave. It is a question carved in bone, a whisper from a time when we were not alone. Their small brains and ancient bodies should have belonged to a world long gone, yet they walked the earth beside us, in the same sun, under the same moon. They remind us that human history is not a ladder, but a maze. A place where shadows move in the corners, where other versions of us once lived, loved, and died, their stories buried in the dark. And maybe, just maybe, the greatest discovery is not that Homo Naledi existed, but that they were never meant to be found, until now. Because the past has a way of hiding its deepest secrets in places where only the bold will go. And in those silent chambers beneath South Africa, we've learned one truth that changes everything. We were never alone, and we still don't know who else might be waiting in the dark.